Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
Well, we're getting to that time of the season where it's time to start to focus on what the offseason could be. Obviously, the Browns have a question as to what they could do at the quarterback position. And I wanted to bring on CORY KINNON to talk about these quarterbacks because there have been a lot of discussion about them. Or do you feel like we're at the point yet to where the majority of people talking about these quarterbacks have actually watch these quarterbacks? Because it feels like sometimes that's just not the case going on right now. I don't know. What's your feel on that?
Feels like we're coming around. It's always been my take that I think that Mendoza and Moore since October. I've said this since October. I think the last time I was on your show that I like both these guys. I like them more than I liked any quarterback in last year's class. More than Ward, more than Dart, those first round guys. So I think so. We're starting to come around. It seems like people are on board with Mendoza now for sure. It still feels like people are a little slow to Moore, but for me, I think those guys are right there at the top. I mean, if I look at my big board, I think I have Mendoza the 5th overall player in the class and Moore the 7th overall player in the class. So really razor thin there. And then we're talking about the quarterback tax. So the 5th overall player in the class, yeah, that guy should go first overall.
Yeah,
playing the quarterback position. So
whenever there's a quarterback in the top 10 of your board, it's a pretty good thing, right? That's where you want to be at. Let's start with Mendoza, right? Because I think he's been the one that people have had more discussion about because there were people, I think, during summer scouting that were pointing out, hey, this guy might be pretty good this year at Indiana. Go ahead and watch him. When you describe him as a prospect, what's the first few things that jumps out to you when you're thinking of Mendoza as a NFL prospect?
Yeah, brilliant and accurate would be the first two things that come to my mind. So the thing that jumped off to me with Mendoza in April, I dropped an article the Monday after the draft. I was like, this guy's the next one. He's the next one. Well documented that I did that. So what really stood out to me compared to the 2025 class of quarterbacks is I was watching the Cal tape and I was like, this guy's seeing things pre-snap that nobody else saw. This guy's doing stuff pre-snap that nobody else saw. This guy is counting the number of guys he's gotten protection versus the number of guys in the box, and he's knowing where that hot receiver is to get the ball out fast and get the ball out on time and get to the ball to his playmakers in space. He always has those creative answers to whatever the defense is throwing at him. And then the ball placement between him and Moore both is spectacular. Both very accurate passers. The other thing for Mendoza that I will just continue to harp on is there hasn't been a situation that's been too big for him throughout his college career. You go back to the Cal tape, there's 2 or 3 games where he's leading game-winning drives. The NC State game last year is one that sticks out in my mind where he drove them all the way down the field and they missed a 35-yard field goal to go ahead late in the game. The Stanford game, he throws a beautiful post for a touchdown while getting smacked in the chin. And then go to this year, we've got the Iowa game. We've got the Oregon game. He throws that horrendous pick off his back foot, then comes back and leads a touchdown drive to answer it right off the rip there. The Iowa game again, come from behind there, throws a beautiful seam ball, gets smacked in his chin again. So he's tough as nails, will take any hit. And then there's the Penn State game, well-documented drive there to literally rip them. What was it, 80 yards down the field for a game-winning drive on that game? So
yeah, that was such a nasty drive. I was watching this and I remember thinking oh man, this is gonna get pretty awkward here if he can't win this game. And he has this knack to be able to pull big plays just out of his ass sometimes when he needs it. The big throw at Ohio State, right, to pretty much win the game in the Big Ten championship. And he has that back shoulder ball that he's just so good at to throw the touchdown to Surratt. And it's this guy consistently, and I think this is, I don't know where we'll end up with Moore and Mendoza when we get to all the way to the draft, all the way through the process. But I know from watching him in college, I've been the thing that stands out the most to me is hey man, gotta have it situations. This dude delivers. Yeah, he shows up. And that is a skill set that is usually pretty highly coveted.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then even you could talk about the Ohio State game. They won what 13-10. So like they scored one offensive touchdown. But that second half was like as well executed from a quarterback perspective as you could ask for. You could even make the case that drive they started backed up in their own within their own 5 yard line there where Ohio State backed them up. And he pulled them all the way out to midfield. And then they were able to punt and flip the field and pin Ohio State all the way back. So like even being able to do that is completely flipping the game on its head. So those high leverage situations are when you're backed up in your own territory, especially at the college level with all the pageantry and the crowd noise and like defense is going to come out hyped up like we're going to get a safety, we're going to get 2 points here, and you even knock the ball out of your own 10, like that deflates a defense. So being able to do that and then completely flip the field, pulled the ball, I think, out to midfield, and they ended up punting that drive. But the one touchdown drive, and then the ice in his veins game sealing throw down the sideline to Becker there to win that game too. It's like every time that you ask this guy in Indiana, you kind of have to parse through those throws because they rip RPOs 30% of the time. If you just let them stay on schedule, you let them get out to 2 score leads, you're not going to get a lot of valuable tape out of Mendoza because he's just going to rip RPOs the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So you really have to pay attention to those reps where he is backed up, where it is second and long, third and long, those obvious passing situations where like this is a true drop back. And again, the Indiana offensive line is not their strong suit. It's not their strong unit. So he's going to have pressure in his face. He's going to have to make a play that isn't just ripping an RPO. And he comes through more often than not. So big fan.
Yeah, I think also it's just like you look at what Indiana was last year and you look at what they are this year. And it's like they're completely different beasts. Like they were a good team last year, but every time they played a real college football program, right, it fell apart at the seams pretty clearly. But now it's like, no, they can't beat Ohio State. They go to Penn State. They beat Penn State. They go and they beat Oregon
on
in
the road.
Oregon, right? Like it's super impressive what he's been able to do. And like when you consider like that offensive line got beat up towards the end of the year, it was never really the strong suit of what Indiana wants to do. And like the wide receivers, who I know people are like, those wide receivers are amazing that he has there. But I think that like he does a good job of elevating those guys because his ball placement is so good because there's really not that much separation that you see.
Surratt specifically does not get open. Surratt is a really good ball winner at the catch point, and he's really good with throwing his hands, like the hand timing, throwing his hands late on those back shoulders. But Surratt is not he's not an athletic guy. He's not going to separate vertically. So like those balls have to be kind of placed into pretty tight windows when he's thrown to that receiver in particular. So.
Who does he remind you of that's been in the league, right? It doesn't have to be somebody who's actively in the league right now, but who does he remind you of?
Matt Ryan is the one that I always come back to, who, again, good enough athlete, not great athlete, but if he has to kind of extend and get out and go a little bit, he can. But where he's going to win is he's going to rip you apart pre-snap, and he's going to know where to go with the football, and he's going to throw an accurate football. Again, we're probably talking B+ arm talent. So again, not an elite arm, not elite tools, B+ arm talent, A+ brain. So I'm gonna go Matt Ryan with that one.
I feel like Matt Ryan's like pretty comfortable there. Matt Ryan was 6'6", right?
He was a big boy. I think he was also 6'4". 6'4"?
Was he 6'4"?
Yeah.
He was a long build. I remember that. Like
he was very long. Yeah,
6'4". 6'4". And Mendoza's sitting 6'4", 6'5"?
Listed 6'5", 225. So probably a little under. He might be 6'5" on the dot, or in that 6'4" range too. Teams always elevate their listing height and weight.
But yeah, it's been fascinating watching Mendoza throughout this thing, because I think the big thing you want to learn from him at Indiana was like, okay, now he's playing football that everybody's going to see, right? Like, how does he respond to that big spotlight? And he has cleared everything that he could clear, I think, this season. Wins the Heisman. Do you think that that's who the number 1 overall pick is going to be, is him? Or do you think that there's a chance that Dante Moore can sneak in there because he's so much younger?
I think there's a chance that Dante Moore can sneak in. I think it's going to – my stance is that, like, again, I'm really high on both these guys. Again, there's one player between them on my big board, and they're both top 10 players for me, top 7 players for me. So, like, I love them both. I think they're both excellent, and I think you can't go wrong. If you have a top 2 pick, I don't think you can go wrong here. I really don't. I think Moore could go 1. He is younger. I don't know if that's going to play into it. He's a little bit more accurate, like by my charting metric, but again, they're both plus 70, and 70 is like, that's a very good number to be at. Which is guys like Jaden Daniels and Drake May have been plus 70 in my metric. So but I think you kind of got to squint less to see it with Moore because Oregon does run way more pro style stuff. They're in 12 personnel a lot. They're running much more NFL like drop backy stuff than Indiana. Dante Moore's, if you watch the dude throw the football, it's poetry as well. So like just very smooth. Everything about his mechanics, his footwork, his delivery is so smooth, so on time, so accurate. So I do think that there is a chance that Moore goes one because I think from an NFL perspective, especially for a team like the Browns or the Rams, who have a top 10 pick thanks to the Falcons or teams like that, I think they might have to squint a little less to see it with more than they do with Mendoza, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And there's some kind of trust there coming out that Will Stein Oregon system where they have had put a couple guys into the NFL that, well, one guy, Bo Nix, that was able to have success early on. But I think Dante Moore is a bit of a different beast there than Bo Nix. I think we both agree on that. Let's kind of talk about the things you like about Dante Moore. You kind of touched on it, right? Where he's such a smooth operator. His poise too is something that stood out to me. It's like this guy's really calm under pressure. What do you like most about his game?
Yeah, I think you can see his brain thinking. Again, that's what I like most of these quarterbacks. I think, and I might have talked about it in the show in the past or not, but I think it was the Mahomes and Allen kind of era that really got everybody like, we just need to find the biggest arms ever and we can teach the rest. And then we really found out really quickly, no, you can't. Like these guys have to be really smart and really fast, and how they pick things up and process things. And you can see the brain clicking with Dante Moore easily, both pre-snap and post-snap. Pre-snap, if you give him quarters, he's going to throw a post and he's going to rip it right to pieces. Post-snap, you can see the eyes working the feet in unison with the eyes as well. He's a better athlete than I think people thought earlier in the season. And then now you have seen to see him use his legs a little bit more down the stretch, even some designed options, designed keepers. So he's a little bit better of an athlete than I think people gave him credit for. Again, probably B plus. Like if it were a grade, I'd say Mendoza has like an 88% arm and Moore has like an 86.5 to 87% arm. Like it's pretty negligible in terms of like the ability to drive the football. But again, pinpoint accuracy, like the deep ball that Dante Moore throws is literally like the crane game at diners or at the arcade where like you drop the crane and you try to pick up the toy. It's like he's literally 30 yards down the field just dropping a ball from a crane right into the lap of his receivers is how on target he is. Just an elite processor and an elite deliverer of the football. So again, a lot to like with both these guys, and both guys love to live in structure. They're going to work from the pocket. They're going to hit that back foot and they're going to try to let the ball out. So big fan of both those guys.
Yeah, the one thing that sticks out with me is the clip. I think it was Kenyon Sadiq last year who was at the Rose Bowl, and they were talking about like, hey, what do you guys think Oregon's going to be able to do next year? They're like, oh no, that guy Dante Moore behind him, that guy's going to win the Heisman or be a Heisman candidate next year. So it's like, oh, what was he doing at practice to these guys at Oregon, right? What if we could go back to Mendoza? If you had to say what is something that gives you a concern about him as a prospect, what do you feel like there is there?
Yeah, he doesn't have great escapability. So when stuff does kind of break down around him, I think once he puts his foot in the ground, his linear kind of explosiveness, his ability to pick up yards in a linear fashion is great. But he is kind of like a Mack truck, trying to change directions, trying to like get going a little bit, you know? So the escapability when stuff kind of breaks down around him gives me a little bit of pause. Had a lot of sacks against last year at Cal, and that Cal offensive line was real rough. But and then that Cal offense didn't have any easy buttons as well. So everything's like 3-man verticals. So he's like, well, who am I supposed to check the ball down to? So I think that is that limited escapability when kind of structure breaks down around him is probably where my biggest red flag for him would be.
Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper.
Okay. Yeah. What about for Dante Moore?
There are times that I feel like Dante Moore, We saw it in the second half of the JMU game. Like, I'm not concerned about either of those interceptions in the JMU game. One was a slant route with the receiver got knocked over, and it was an easy interception. But I think he can get into these heat check mentalities where he's like, I'm just going to throw whatever I want. And that kind of can turn into some turnovers for him when he starts to get in the role a little bit. And I will say his response to pressure is a little bit less than Mendoza's as well. And I think, we saw that in the Wisconsin game. And the Wisconsin game was like an icy rain and really like cold and windy, where they were just like trying to throw RPOs and just get the ball to playmakers in space and just be like, let's just get upfield. Let's just get upfield. But there are times where defenses can throw 5-6 at Moore, and he's a little slow to either find that hot or like doesn't pick it up pre-snap and then kind of collapses on like in on himself post-snap on those kind of looks.
All right. So both these guys are in the playoffs. Do you think there's much more we can learn about these guys from what they do in the playoffs? Like, is there stuff that you're wanting to see from these guys? Because you're already pretty high on them. You already have them in the top 10 of your board, right? But like, is there more that you could like? Is there an opportunity to see something that can make you even higher on these guys, or something that can make you much more concerned about these guys?
So for more particular, they're playing Texas Tech, and Texas Tech has two really good edge rushers. Texas Tech's entire front four is nasty, very nasty. Oregon's tackle situation is like fine for college tackles, but like Isaiah World has not played well at all this year at left tackle, even though he was the big transfer from Nevada that everybody was hyping up preseason.
Is he related to Jason Worlds?
I have no idea.
Okay, because I know it was tackle back in the day too.
Right tackle Alex Harkey, kind of the same thing. So those tackles are not playing the best football. So I think that Dante Moore is going to have a chance to really settle in and be like, I can respond to pressure. When these guys are in my face, I'm going to still stand in and deliver, which is kind of the stuff against Iowa until late in that game. Stuff against Wisconsin that I'm like, a little iffy there. So I think there's a chance for Moore to really stamp like, no, I'm that dude in that regard. For Mendoza, I'm not going to get any lower on him, and I don't know how much higher I could get on him. Going against Alabama, this feels like a very similar matchup to Ohio State, because where that Indiana offensive line is susceptible is through the interior, because like the tackles are just going to jump set you and he's going to get the ball out fast. But if you can pressure him closest man to the football, then we might have some issues. But I don't think Alabama has any defensive tackles that I feel like are a real big threat, just the way I didn't feel like that against Ohio State. Ohio State's best defensive tackle is Caden McDonald, who is the best nose tackle in college football. But like in terms of pass rush, I was like, I don't know how quickly he's going to get there. So I think Indiana's matched up really well, and I think he's going to be able to do this similar to what he did to Ohio State in this game. If they win, I don't know. But like, unless he goes out and he throws like 3 first half interceptions and completely crumbles, I'll have to reevaluate, but I don't know how that happens. I don't see how that happens.
Speaking of Alabama, what do you make of Ty Simpson?
Yeah. So it feels like with the Ty Simpson thing, we hit this like peak where Dane Brugler put him as his top player on his board in like October. And then it kind of bottomed out from there. For me, on my podcast and on my site, in my articles, I had been saying since week 7, which was the Missouri game, it's like, I'm starting to see cracks already. Like I was really high on him through those first 6 weeks where he went through, I think it was Wisconsin, and I think Vanderbilt game was in there, and there was another game in there before we got to Missouri. But from that Missouri game on, even though there weren't like interceptions in the box score and it looked clean, the ball placement and accuracy I could see deteriorating from that week 7 on. And again, that's documented on my podcast. And so like then it really started to crumble, and Alabama started to lose games because he was missing wide open guys all over the field. And so Simpson's a guy that I need to see a lot more from to be able to jump back on. I think he's probably a fringe top 50 player. And again, being a quarterback, that means you probably could go first round because they're going to be desperate teams who are going to take you. But like, he's like rail thin. So in terms of body development, like the arm's not getting any bigger. There's not a lot more room to like develop any like hidden athleticism. So like, to me, he fits that mold of like, this is not even like a Kirk Cousins kind of quarterback, but maybe like Brock Purdy has gone through some things where he plays really well, but I think that's a system of Shanahan, right? Like a product of Shanahan, and Brock Purdy's really creative and is kind of sneaky athletic, even more so than Simpson. But like, that kind of tier of quarterback where it's like, this is going to be a top 18 to 25 ish quarterback at his best, I think. If he has a playmaker, a coach who can get the most out of him. But if teams start to dial back in on him a little bit and start to figure things out, like it could get really ugly and really ugly fast. And I think that's the kind of the Tua thing, right? Like when Mike McDaniel first came in there, they were getting the ball out fast. He was spot throwing everything. Everything was first read because they were dialing everything up pre-snap, exit motion out the wazoo, getting guys into space, balls coming out fast. And then like things start to slow down a little bit in Miami, and then it's like, oh, this guy can't throw the ball more than 20 yards down the field with any sort of velocity. Which Ty Simpson has a stronger arm than that, but the ball placement accuracy is really ugly. It's really ugly right now, so he needs a strong, like they need a playoff run. But I also think that Ty Simpson might be pigeonholed into declaring because they got a young guy named Keelan Russell who's right behind him, and like if he says no, I'm not ready to declare, is Alabama going to sit that kid another year? Or are they going to tell him, well, that's fine, but go play somewhere else, go find somewhere else to play football? And for a guy who's stuck at Alabama as a backup for 3 years before he finally got his shot, that feels kind of like Bama loyal. Like, so like I think he might be a little pigeonholed into declaring though. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes against Indiana and then further down the road if they keep winning some games here.
I mean, that's what happened with Milroe last year, right? Where Milroe was like, "Hey, it's Alabama, you can't stay." Like, there's no staying. Who do you think is going to be this year's All-Star game riser? Right, I think last year was Dart and Chuck. Who's it going to be? Because I my guess is probably like John Mateer is going to throw a really fast football, and people are going to get all over that. But like his process, like he looks like he doesn't. He plays blindfolded sometimes.
He shouldn't come out. He shouldn't come out.
Does he have more eligibility left?
He's a redshirt junior. Yeah, he's got one more year left. Yeah.
Yeah, he should go back to Oklahoma.
So Brennan Sorsby is the name that I will continue to talk about. Again, he's in the transfer portal right now. He's weighing his options in the portal, and he's also getting NFL feedback at the same time. So there's a chance he could still declare. Sorsby will be that guy. If people go and see him in an All-Star game and watch him live, that dude has first-round tools all day. The ball has a ton of velocity. He's got a ton of arm angles. He's an effortless thrower, and he's a great athlete. So, like, in terms of tools, guys got it across the board. The play is a roller coaster, though, week in and week out in the Big 12. So, like, that's where you want to see him be a little more consistent. But he goes to an All-Star game, man. He's going to get people falling in love with him because, again, he's like a legitimate 6'3" and 230 pounds as well. So he's well built, looks like an NFL quarterback, throws the football like an NFL quarterback. In those up close and personal settings, teams will fall in love with Sorsby. And I've even heard that like one team has already told his agent, like, you'll go first round if you come out. So like he would be my favorite to be QB3 in this class if he comes out. But it sounds like there's a Big 12 school with a lot of engineering money that might be throwing around some dollars at him. So we'll see what happens there. But so Sorsby would be my bet there. If Sorsby goes back to school, dude, it's anybody's game. I mean, you might be able to fall back and love a Cade Klubnik. It's just not a great quarterback class outside of those top two guys. Again, I'm really high on those top two guys, but then after that, there's a pretty big drop off. Maybe like Ty Simpson would probably earn some favors in the All-Star circuit as well. But if you look at the quarterbacks that have accepted Senior Bowl invites, they're all like day 3 players. So
who's accepted their Senior Bowl? I know so Klubnik's going to be East-West, right?
Klubnik's East-West. Senior Bowl is like Sawyer Robertson at Baylor, Talon Green at Arkansas, Diego Pavia. There was another one that I saw. Oh, Cole Payton, the North Dakota State kid. So like, yeah, it's
getting guys.
The quarterback class at the Senior Bowl is a little iffy. So I don't know if there is like a Shuck Dart in this class if Sorsby goes back to school. He would be my bet that it would be Sorsby if he came out, but we'll see if Texas Tech throws too many dollars his way and keeps him in college.
Yeah, you were talking about this on the timeline where like Mensa was thinking about coming out, and I was surprised by that because it was like he feels like he should stay because like I don't think he's going to get a evaluation that's going to be higher than $4 million in the first round, right? You got to be like a top 15 pick. So I imagine he goes back to Duke. Like
he's already announced he's going back. Yeah,
I was about to say because it's like I get it though. Like your options are NFL or go back to Duke. It's tough to go back to Duke, but you're gonna have to go back to Duke.
Yeah, he announced he was going back. I think it was like last week, and I think Dane Brugler tweeted out that like he had gotten the feedback, and the feedback was all day 3. So he's like, all right, I'm going back. So yeah,
was it? Do you think there's any sleepers in this class, quarterback wise?
No, I don't. No, I'm scrolling through the list right now as we're recording, and no. If Sorsby goes back to school, who is that that sleeper agent in this class?
Mm-hmm.
Then you gotta talk yourself back into Ty Simpson again.
Okay. And what do you think about the 2027 class, right? Because everybody, it's interesting how it goes, right? Where it's like whenever your team has the opportunity to take a quarterback, then it's like, oh, all of a sudden the next year's draft class is going to be so much better, right? But when you're trying to forecast what 2027 is going to look like what's really there? Because I'm not as high on the 2027 classes like some of the internet is.
It's the thing. It's the theory that next year's class is always better, and then next year's class happens, and it's like, oh wait, there's like two guys that are actually going to come out and like be first round picks again. I will say the tools, like the high end tools of next year's class, are much better. Play has to improve like across the board, though. Again, we're talking about tools. We're talking about Arch Manning. We're talking about Dylan Raiola. We're talking about Nico Iamaleava, if you want to, and we're talking about DJ Lagway. All have immense tools, like excellent elite tools. I don't know if any of those guys, maybe Arch down the stretch has started to play really good football, like really good football. But none of those guys have really lived up to the expectations of what people thought of them, especially not Nico. Nico's going back to UCLA. He just announced as well. So I'm not super high on next year's class. Again, I'm really hoping for another leap from Lenore Sellers. I do think there was that little incremental leap. He's a lot better in structure as a pocket passer than people give him credit for. He's not anywhere near as raw as Anthony Richardson was 3 years ago or whatever, but I do think it was the right move to go back. I don't know about going back to South Carolina. So I'm hoping for another leap from Sellers in that regard. But then we're back to talking about John Mateer, back talking about Sam Levitt, back to talking about Brennan Sorsby again, potentially.
How the hell does Sam Levitt still have eligibility?
He's only a redshirt sophomore this year.
Really?
Yeah, he's a young dude.
He's only one of those guys 20. Who feels like they've been in college forever.
So that's kind of where we're kind of talking about. So the tools are there. Like Levitt, awesome tools as well. Like Levitt reminds me of like Auburn Bo Nix, though, where like my term for these kind of quarterbacks who want to like just run around outside of structure and then wait for guys to get open where they just heave the ball down the field. I call them fun dip snorters. Like Levitt is a fun dip snorter to like the nth degree, because that's what he wants to do. He wants to live on the edges of the field, wait for somebody to get open, and then just throw this weird off platform throw. You ask that guy to take a 3-step drop and get the ball out at the top of his drop, it's probably not happening on a regular basis. So like those quarterbacks scare me in that regard as well. So Josh Hoover, another one, TCU, he's in the transfer portal right now. So like a lot of like whippy fun arms, nobody that I feel comfortable saying like this guy's a for-sure top overall pick and this guy's better than any guy that's coming out this year's class. These guys have to develop. All of them do. There's no guy that's like, yeah, this guy's ready. Ohio State fans will get really mad about Julian Sain if I say anything about Julian Sain, but I have a hard time buying into a quarterback that's built like Timothy Chalamet. So, and again, he's played from behind one game all season and it didn't go in his favor. And things looked real rough. So, gonna have to see a little bit more because I don't see a high end arm. I see a pretty mid arm. My comp for Sain has been Aaron Murray, who the most decorated passer in SEC history. That guy went 5th round because he's small and the tools aren't there. So Aaron Murray
was such a Aaron Murray guy, by the way. Like he was like, that's the next Russell Wilson. He swore. I think he saw the Gruden quarterback camp that he had, and he was like, oh man, that guy's gonna be good. Every time I saw Aaron Murray, because I think he played for like the Atlanta Legends for like one of these spring leagues. I was like, wow, that's where Aaron Murray is. But yeah, it's funny you bring that up because my dad is the biggest Aaron Murray stan of all time. Like
that's the vibes that I get. Like you could be a really decorated college passer. That's great. Again, Aaron Murray holds every SEC passing record. If you don't got the tools, you don't got the tools. And that's kind of what I see from Sain.
Okay. All right. So what do you think about like some of the other position groups in this draft, right? Like if the Browns want to solve some of the other problems that they have, right? Wide receiver, offensive line, where do you think it's going to be? Where do you think there's going to be opportunities to attack maybe late first, early second, round 3?
Yeah. So, I mean, for one, if they don't land a top 2 pick, I think that you're probably talking about Carnell Tate 3rd overall. That might sound high for Carnell Tate, but that's probably the conversation the Browns have to have, given the value of the wide receiver class and the value of the offensive tackle class. It's a great wide receiver class. It's not a very good offensive tackle class. So, again, and if they don't get a top 3 pick, one of those two teams that are finishing in front of them are drafting a quarterback, unless it's the Giants, right? They could find a way to trade up with the Giants if the Giants decide we'll give Dart another year. Giants might have a new GM. They're going to have a new head coach, and they pick that guy like 26th. That doesn't guarantee him a second year by any means. We saw the Cardinals kick Kyler or Josh Rosen to the road, and he was a top 10 pick the year before. Mm-hmm. So I'm not 100% sold that the Giants are going to run it back with Dart because he can't protect himself. He's in the blue tent every single week. And then he just threw for 70 yards on whatever it was this past week, 33 yards this past weekend or something like that. So I think unless it is the Giants, whoever picking top two, they're taking quarterbacks and they're not trading out that spot. That's how desperate these teams are going to be for those quarterbacks. So that's where you talk about Cardinal Tate, third overall. If we kick it to the back end of the first round, that Jaguars pick, which looks like that's going to be late first round here. I would have felt really good about Louisville's Chris Bell and just tore his ACL in November. But again, you talk about an 8-month recovery for ACL these days. He could be back by camp. So maybe like a Chris Bell, 6'2", 227 or 6'1", 227 wide receiver. Really fun with explosive with the ball in his hands. Like he can house a quick slant, take it 60 yards down the house. We're probably talking about Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. Again, another lightning in a bottle guy after the catch. But by 27, we're talking about Tate, Lemon, Tyson, all being off the board. So you might have to get a little bit creative there. You could talk about Denzel Boston as well. I'm a little bit lower on Denzel Boston, would probably be like an early second round guy. But again, we're talking late first, early second. The value's identical, so it doesn't really matter. Big body dude, but again, not a big separator down the field, just a big time ball winner. Those receivers kind of scare me when you start to project in the NFL level about can they get open, and if they can't get open, then we just see what's happening with Keon Coleman in Buffalo right now. Same kind of build, same kind of body type, same kind of movement skills. So that kind of stuff scares me. But yeah, and then Omarion Miller decided to go back to school and hit the transfer portal. So I was a huge Omarion Miller fan, where I would have been like, I'd take that guy at 27 and not even think twice about it. But getting a little iffy into the second round there with receivers. Offensive tackle, I think they should be able to find one there. And again, unless teams get real desperate and they make a huge run on some offensive and overvalue these offensive tackles, which could happen because if you look at the top 20 paid offensive tackles, only one of them is a free agency ad, which means teams are re-signing their tackles because there's nobody on the market. So that's a huge surplus disadvantage at the position. You might have to overdraft them. But I tend to think at 27, you might get a guy like Utah's Caleb Lomu, who I'm a huge fan of, left tackle from Utah. You might even see the Browns in a position where they say, we got to take a guard at 27. And you can talk yourself into Penn State's Vega Ioana. You could talk yourself into Texas A&M's Chase Bizantis. I think there are a couple there as well.
All right. Well, Corey, it's been a great conversation. Where can people find more of your work, man?
Yeah, so daftOnDraft.football is my HQ. That's my Substack. Video content, big boards, positional rankings. My quarterback charting metric. You'll get access to that Google Drive as well. All of these ball placement and accuracy charts for all these quarterbacks in this class. And then you'll get access to my Discord channel as well that has a paid subscriber only tab with some insider information as well there. So whatever I hear from scouts, agents, I'll try to pass along any information I get there. And then the Daft on Draft podcast is 4 episodes a week as well. So Daft on Draft is my HQ.
All right. Make sure you guys go check it out. Corey, thank you for being on. Everybody have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.